Welcome to She Talks Sense, where we talk everything that makes sense.
So today's topic is finance. So let's talk about it.
Let's get into it.
Well, I think last week, or last episode, we kind of got into like why we got started in why we fell into finance. But today I really want to start off by diving deeper into why we are so passionate about it. So I think we both have a story that we grew up very differently and why we're like, oh my gosh, we need to learn about this type of topic. But so Cass, tell us a little bit about kind of like your upbringing regarding finance and why this, like when the opportunity came, why you were like super passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I love great question. And if you don't know, now you know, but I grew up in Chandler, Arizona, and I grew up in like a middle income family. You know, in the beginning, my dad just worked really hard for corporate and didn't go to college. He really just worked his way up and worked for a great company. But my mother, she was diagnosed at a very young age with multiple sclerosis. So early on, I saw her really struggle. Like age 30, she was in a wheelchair. She wasn't able to really take care of herself. And I always saw her work hard with like laborious things. She would paint, she would clean houses and really make ends meet any way she could, like really hustled. But my dad was really that provider for us. So yeah, we were blessed with certain things my dad would do for us, like take us to trips. And, you know, we did get to travel, which is a really big part of my childhood. But I just remember like seeing that dynamic and him working all the time. You know, I remember him going to work at like 3-4 in the morning, working every single day he could. And he was always dedicated to his work to take care of my mom. And being disabled with that disease is like very costly. On top of that, 3 kids. So it's my brother and my sister and me. And me being the youngest, we had like a large age gap. So my brother's 14 years older. My sister's 8 years older. And yeah, growing up, I was kind of alone, you know, but never taught about money. And I remember there were moments where, you know, we did struggle, but always had a roof over our heads, food. So very blessed there, but we never learned about money, right? My dad just taught me like, get a good career, get benefits, 401k, and that was it. You know, and I think that's very like common, especially if you grew up here in the United States. But yeah, and I remember very young, he would like give me chores. So I would make $5 for me how to do a list of chores. I always want to do chores. So I learned how to work for money, which is cool. But yeah, like my relationship with money was kind of, I had both ends of the spectrum, I feel like at sometimes, because my dad did build his way up, but he taught me like how to go earn a dollar. He would provide, but make sure I knew how to earn it. So I would make, again, money off chores. And then at age 16, I got my first job. So at the age that I could work, I started to. But I didn't know how to manage my money. Like that's for sure. I quickly after making money, I didn't know how to keep it, point blank. And I ended up like just being impulsive with my spending. So this is kind of my relationship with money. And I didn't understand like long-term how that would really impact me, like how that would really affect me. And then I remember getting a credit card at Sunglass Hut, actually. Sunglass Hut reeled me in. It all started. I was walking in the mall and I stumbled in there and I got a credit card. And I maxed out.
Oh gosh.
So that was my first like taste of credit. And I didn't understand like, oh, if you're late, it's going to actually impact me for like years.
You're like, I have to pay that back.
Like,
what?
Yeah. So yeah, I had to learn the hard way, but definitely there was points, like I said, though, that we struggled that it leaves something in you, like that survivor mode can come on at any moment when you feel like that deficiency of money. And so that was something even until like adulthood, you know, being a young adult, I struggled with, you know, having a budget, not overspending, not being impulsive, like that did follow me. And just having that scarcity mindset was kind of always there.
Yeah.
So that was my relationship with money. And I don't know, so many people like I've talked to now can, I'm sure, relate, but it took a a point for me to like get tired of that cycle, because that followed me until my early 20s, before 20s. And it was so, in other words, it was just like embarrassing to not feel that you have that confidence in money. So I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like not to have money. I know what it's like to feel inefficient with just like being able to pay for yourself. So when I got in front of this information and I learned, it was one, like, I need to become a client. Like, I need to actually do this myself. How does money actually work? And just set myself up so I can take care of my future without the same repetition of like the upbringing. So really that's why I'm passionate, is because it's changed my life. Just knowing how money works and doing that for others.
It's just beautiful to see, honestly, because like I remember those days like with you, and just like how much like she's so like you're so good with finance now, and how to save and not overspend. And we always have this saying, it's like, I don't need it.
We don't need it.
Want it. Because like it's beautiful to see that transition, and like how you are with finance now, and like and it does like going through that, like it does like the confidence, like it I know many people can probably relate to that. It starts to affect you like emotionally,
Absolutely,
because you don't feel good. And if you don't feel good, because like, you're not confident, you feel like you can't support yourself, like everything just like, and you don't when you're probably going out and having even like being around people, that's literally all you're thinking about. You have that anxiety feeling.
Exactly.
Right?
You definitely hit it on the head there with like stress is just, it's like a cloud. You can't get out of it. It just follows you. And we speak on this too, but like so many people get sick financially because of finances, right? So going through that upbringing, it was for me, like I had to go through it. I feel like, unfortunately, so then I can never want to go there again.
And the fact that you could speak on it, right? Like, and so many people, like I said, like go through it, so you can give them great advice. That's why we're here.
Want to be there's hope. No, and thank you for that. It really does, like, it means a lot to me just having like you been through that with me. But I do want to just turn it back to you. And let's go back a little bit for you, because your story is very unique and very special. If you can just share, what growing up looked like for you financially and why you got passionate about it.
Man, I just like same way in a sense that like when I saw the information, I was like, wow, like this is the information that we're not being taught. Because I was like, why? How come everyone around us are like paycheck to paycheck, and they're always struggling, they're always in credit card debt, and I just feel like it was like a rat race, and I'm like, I just don't feel like life is supposed to be this way, and so I was always like in the search of like, what am I missing? But when I got presented like all the material, and like I'm like, wow, I need to learn that. I had no idea like what it was saying, but I was like, we both were like, we need to learn this. But I was super passionate because growing up for me, same in a sense of like, middle class family. I actually grew up in South Korea. If you like kimchi.
Love kimchi.
But I grew up in a different country, and very loving family. I will say, like, I'm so blessed to have an amazing family that just are always like, I mean, we grew up Christian and we're very important. Like there's so much like love, but when it comes to finance, like we just, there was never like, we never went without, but it wasn't like anything more than that, And so my dad, he was a professor, and I really don't have memories with him because he was constantly working. So my childhood, like I don't have memories with him at all. And I think he was stressed because he had a lot of like pressure. I don't know. And he would drink, and like that's so like my mom would be home taking care of me, and like after he would get off work, he would just like drink with his friends, and like, and I don't even know half of the story, and I think my mom doesn't even like talk about it. But it was like pretty bad. But so for me, that's kind of like where it was. But something when I was about 3 years old, my dad passed away, like with a sudden heart attack. And like, I just, but it was just like overnight. So, oh my God, I don't want to like get emotional, but, he was super healthy, 39 years old. So none of us saw it coming, and I was 3, so I had no idea what was going on. But the only memory I have with him is like honestly seeing him at the hospital. Because I think when you're like have something like traumatizing happening, I think you remember those like clips like in childhood. And so that changed everything. Like we had to nothing was set up financially. You didn't have life insurance, you didn't have any like trust. I mean, it's like different obviously in a different country, but nothing was the only thing he had was debt. So my mom had to like we had to move in back with our grandparents, and just kind of like, I mean, I feel like I'm getting emotional because I think about my mom at the time just having to provide. And she went through some dark times, but she got saved. And oh my gosh, sorry. Thank you. I want to be crying. I'm gonna ruin my makeup.
No, just
thank you.
Take a second.
Okay. I didn't think I talked about this story before, but so yeah, so my mom went through a lot, and she was on Survivor. I mean, she is a very, very brave woman, and she was like, you know what, I need to provide for this little girl. And in South Korea, it's very like when they talk about like Asians are like smart and all that's like people joke about that, but like it's because like it's kind of a very toxic, almost like it's like they make everyone like study super hard. Like you get out of school like 7 to like 5, you're going to another like afternoons after hour school to like you're going like till 11, and then you're back in. It's like crazy, and it's so competitive.
It's like a job, it sounds like.
Yeah, and if you're not smart, like you're not cool. Like everyone's trying, like here it's like it was so different when I came here. And then I was like, but over there my mom is like, there's absolutely like no way like in order for her to have a better future, like we need to move. And so she made a decision. Like she was like, we're going to US, like America, and land of opportunity. And I'm so forever grateful for it. And coming here, she worked really hard, obviously any job that she can, and she just had enough, and so I just knew growing up, like because my dad passed away when I was 3 years old, and I saw my mom, and again, like I didn't really get time with my family. Like I grew up with my grandma because like they were always working. My mom was always working. I just knew that she was just trying to do the best she can. And even though I was like young, I just knew that. And so I just had this like burning desire from the beginning to do something more. And I never wanted to struggle with money. And I always like saw the topic, like our family, like we would always be like, they would always, it was never a language of like, oh, we're gonna have this one day and that one day. Like we never like talk like that. It was very like, just like, have your job, like, have enough, and, just kind of like do that. And I wanted to, so the big reason why I might be rambling on here because I didn't think I was going to, but the big reason is like, I was like, man, I need to learn this information so that I could help my mom. I could be better with my finances. But one thing that I will give so much like credit to like my mom was a big person to like store your money, never like overspend, never. So I was really good about making sure it wasn't like out of control. Like I always paid things off like on time, and never like overspent, and just kind of in my means. So that was my like childhood, and like, you know, going into like my early 20s. And you know, I had to also pay for school on my own, and my mom told me, like, even though I had to pay for it, she was like, you're not taking out loans, like save like what you. So I was working like 2 serving jobs or 3 serving jobs probably at one point, just to like save to, you know, pay for college. And it was just kind of like deteriorating, because I'm like, oh, the more time that you just kind of give, then you're the more hours you're giving away. And then I was just like on this rat race. But yeah, so I feel
you were not rambling. No, I think it was just like you had a different upbringing than like a lot of us did, you know, being from a different country, and like that parent, you know, aspect, not having 2 parents that can provide, you know, and like your mom stepping up. Like, man, I wish you would have taught me that when I was young. Not to overspend, but no, honestly, it's just like super, you can see that it's been a pillar for you, right? And like that you're doing that for others, and like you got to like know the importance of that. And I think one thing maybe we can talk about is like now, you know, talking about our own upbringing and our own story. Yeah. We hear so many of those for others now, being on the other side. What would you say, you know, I have some, but like just some struggles that are common for people like right now, maybe that you've sat with that are more common?
I think a lot of things is like people, and that's everybody is struggling at some point, and majority, not everybody, but majority of the US population, right? And they don't know what's going in, what's going out. They don't have a budget, so they're overspending, and they're getting into this rat race. Because like now, credit cards right now, I mean, some interests are like 31%, right? It's ridiculous, and the banks want their chunk no matter what, you know. And you're making that monthly payment. It's never paying down the principal, but now once you get into that, it's just constant, right? Because your income, typically if you have a job, right, your income is going to stay the same, so you get paid the same amount, but then your interest is constant. So people are always getting into that. So I think it starts with like them not knowing what's going in, what's going out. So the budgeting aspect, not looking at what they're, you know, spending, like I said, and then also avoiding it too. Like they're not, because oftentimes when people want to get better, like they get scared of number one, exposing what's going on, and number 2 is like, well, if they avoid, they don't have to feel, you know, and like face the reality. But it's powerful if you can just be like, you know what, this is where I'm at and I need help. I'm going to get out of this, and where can I start? And what's my action plan? You know, because you don't have to be in debt forever, guys. You could get out of it, you know, and there are plans, but you have to be disciplined. You have to make that decision, that like delay gratification, right? So many times people are so in instant gratification. I want that thing now. And a lot of the times people get into debt because of like instant gratification. You want that stuff, you know, and did you really need that?
Yeah. And I think that's like a great point where we really live it out now more so is like, do we want it or do we need it? And that's literally like the question I ask, do I want it or do I need it? And that's big things and small things. It can be that coffee. It can be that meal. It can be getting nails done or whatever. Do I want it or is it a need? And I think just that simple question can save you a lot of financial stress, because now you are in control and now you are aware. You're not just mindlessly spending, which I think is very easy to do. So I think that's, to your point, you know, like I just had a client share with me that, you know, facing the debt or facing like what the expenses are, what's the income, it was something they had been avoiding for so long. And it was like a dark thing to them, right? To look at. It was like a negative thing. And just taking that first step, just looking was like, oh, it's actually not that bad, right? You help them guide them through it. And so, yeah, I think it's just a powerful thing to make a decision to get on it, you know?
And I will say, just because a lot of people think it's the little stuff, because a lot of times people are like, oh, that's just like $5. That's just like $6, you know? And that is actually the biggest, because oftentimes when we do sit down with clients and let's go over it, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is how much I'm actually spending. But oftentimes they're like, it's not even like, I don't even see big, I don't even buy anything. I'm like, yeah, it's the little stuff that adds up, actually.
The chip in the bucket.
And so for those of you guys who are making excuses, like, oh, it's just like, just be honestly, even if you could get disciplined for the next like 2 months, 3 months, like of just like watching what you're spending and not trying to not even like spend at all, just like fix something, you know, obviously food to live. If you're in that position, right, then you could start to get even so much better just by that. But absolutely. What would you say that you notice, you know, when you're sitting down with people, what their struggles are when it comes to finance?
Well, big one is the budget. Really just not knowing where their money's going. Another big one is like those who are nearing retirement, not feeling ready, feeling like it's late. A lot of the times I wish I would have known this earlier. I wish I was taught this growing up. We can't turn back time, but we can do something now. And I say that's the biggest struggle, and really just not knowing who to trust. Like there's so much information, there's people. I mean, financial industry can have a negative perspective, I guess, because of, unfortunately, there are people out there that are in it for themselves. But just having someone that's real, that they can trust, that is in their corner, and not just like a one time, I'm only here for this transaction. I'm here through all walks of life, through every season, because things are ever changing. So yeah, that's some of the big things here. And I think like cost of living has gone up with inflation, everything that happens in the world, it really does impact us. And we'll get into this probably here in another time, but really, elections coming up, and there is a lot of turbulence with that. But people are only focused on the negative, like where they lack, that they don't even care what's going on, when politics are involved, like how that affects policies and their money. Like they don't even care. They don't want to know. They don't really know how to learn how this really does impact them. But I think it's just they're so focused on the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why you're always going to track that. You're really like magnifying it. So I think it's like, that's what I run into majority of the time when there is concern, is like, okay, I don't have enough for a rainy day, like an emergency fund. I'm paycheck to paycheck. I'm actually like behind. And I don't know how I'm going to properly prepare for retirement.
Yeah.
So common issues that seem very simple if you're in the space of finance, but to somebody that's just working and earning money, it can be life-changing just putting those things in place.
Yeah. And honestly, going back to what you said about like finding someone like there's to trust to help you, it's big, because there's a lot of people in the industry. There's good people in the industry and there are not. So they're in it for themselves, unfortunately. And a lot of the times in the industry, like they don't truly like care about like where they're at financially, if they're in debt. Like they just want to invest here and there, whatever. It's like what they're around. But I think that goes for both me and you. We take the time to sit down and really dive deep with the core of the issue of their finances. And sometimes it's just like free knowledge information, because we truly want them to see improvement in their finances, and it's rare to find people like that, and that so I'm really like kudos to us, honestly, because we do care about their future, and we want to see the success at the end of the road. We want you to be able to retire on time. It can be, a lot of the times people think that when we ask them, when do you want to retire? Most oftentimes they're like, I never even thought about that.
That's scary.
that is scary. Like, how come, right? But the society doesn't like teach us that we can even make that a reality. But if we're working so many years of our life dedicated to a job, like, shouldn't at least be like you can retire, the time that you want to. But and I think one of the big problem also, I will say, is I'm forgetting the word, but what does it mean when they can't, guys, English is my second language. But when they push it out, like they
defer,
they don't take action right away. They
procrastinate.
Okay.
Got you.
And people are the biggest procrastinator. We're all victims of it at one point, and then, but people tend to procrastinate. Okay. And I think that's like, okay, we'll do it later. We'll fix it later. And then it goes another year. And then boom, like now they're like 55 years old and they have 10 years left of like, working years.
Capital years of earning. Yeah. And I think it's like people think they have so much more time than they actually do. And I mean, example, like your father, his soul rest in peace, but passed at a very young age, didn't have a plan in place, and probably thought he had time to do that. So just putting it in front of you and really just having that plan, it starts there. Yeah. And it's not as scary if you have somebody that can guide you through it.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about, debt, I think it's just like a very common thing where, there's a large percent of people that are in debt paycheck to paycheck. But what strategies or tools have you found helpful for managing or helping people eliminate their debt, or you personally? Like, what have you done?
I think number one, like it's recognizing. And then what I would tell my client is that, okay, if you're in debt, like let's write down everything. Write down all the interest. Where's all the debt? Is it credit card? Is it loans? And let's identify that. And then depending on if they have like, good credit or not, like obviously then we'll have to like pivot into different direction. But one of the big thing that I've been helping clients who have like, they have good credit score and it's just they're constantly like paying that monthly and it's like never going down, is like balance transfer. It's a you open up another credit card. There's a balance transfer fee of 3%, but then you get 0% interest for the next like 18 months or 21 months. We could roll all of those credit cards, and maybe you have 3 of them. You could roll over into one, and you're really tackling that debt, and it's actually going down because you're not being charged interest every single month, and you're seeing that principal go down. And so having that good roadmap for that's a great way to like honestly get out of debt a lot faster. But with that, it's sometimes you have to be careful because you have to know that you're dedicated to paying that off instead of getting into another credit card and like, ending up like racking it up again because of your habits.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think it's true. It's like your habits follow you. You are where you go. But that's a great strategy, for just, we're not giving financial advice, disclaimer. So got to put that out there, but it is something that people can look into that, we definitely can assist clients with that do have, pretty good credit. What would you say about those who maybe don't have good credit, like suggestions that are tangible things that they can do?
I mean, I would always say like make more money, right? It's like identify where you're at, but also you could only like lower your expenses so much.
Yeah.
And it's like you need, if you're like literally paycheck to paycheck and there's no like you lower, and that's the first thing. It's like, lower all your expenses as much as possible to like fix expenses, right? Subscriptions, get rid of the ones that you don't need. And most of the time you're not even using it. That, and then, but create opportunity for yourself, make more money. Because if you're not making more money, like you're not going to be able to like start saving and like tackling that debt. So I would say that's kind of like my big take on that, like point blank, to be honest.
Everything will be resolved with more money.
Yeah. I'm like, if I always answer these questions, or like I always try to put myself in that shoes. I don't know what I would do. That's where the kind of answer comes
just
from.
Get a bigger plate if it gets full.
Yeah. But I would say, question for you. How do you approach financial discussion in relationship, whether it's your partner, your friends, your family? I think it's a topic is like kind of like taboo. No one really talks about it. So kind of what's kind of like your takeaway on that?
Yeah, for that vulnerable conversation, you have to be vulnerable first, I think. For me and my spouse, my fiance, we're both in finance, but we have recently kind of combined some of our finances because we are engaged. But it's really just knowing like where you're at individually, where your shortfalls are. So if I'm in debt, just knowing where I stand. So taking personal responsibility for yourself, but being vulnerable maybe to your partner and not hiding it, because I think that just creates a stress. There's no intimacy with that. And how do you really build something long term with that? It's a huge part of like living your finances. So just being vulnerable, knowing where you're at, but then creating a plan together. So we always talk about, okay, what are we spending that we shouldn't be spending? We create a budget. And I'm so grateful that we started this almost like a year ago now, and it's helped, but it's just, okay, we're going to work really hard and let's have one date night a week.
Oh yeah.
One date night a week, because you got to make that time. I love our date night. But it's nice because
going on one tonight.
I have a date night tonight actually, so I'm excited. We're going to wrap this up. But yeah,
places to be.
I'm so excited for it. But yeah, it really, for, to that point, it helps us get excited, but we have a budget. So we're like, okay, we're only going to spend $80, $60, $100. We have an Indian spot that's literally $34 and like we go there like once a week. So there's ways to make it affordable, but just having a like a deadline of like a date, so you're not overspending together, because that's something that we realized when you're in a partnership, that especially if you live together, we're both making our own money. We both have our own bank accounts, but we're both spending out of it. So we would like rack up like, how much did we actually spend this last month on food? I was like $300, $200. It was just outrageous. And so we decided to open up a joint bank account where we have a certain amount going into it each time we're paid. And from that account, we have our date nights, we have our utility, like whatever our fixed expenses together are. But I think that's something that's really helped us like in a relationship. Is just having a structure where we both have our bank accounts. We're still our independent people making money. But we also created our joint account where we can come together and see what we're spending together. For friends, siblings, family. I think it's also a part of that too, is you being vulnerable and us talking, because we're in this space. It's easier, I think, for us to be vulnerable. But really, like, if you want to be close to somebody, it does take you kind of putting that wall down first. Yeah. And really just identifying, okay, is there something that they're doing that I see that they're doing better? They're succeeding financially, and asking them, well, what have you done? Ask those questions to people in your family, in your circle. Like, what are you doing? where are you putting your money? How are you structuring it? Like, don't be afraid to ask that question, I think. But also if you're doing something and you see that they're maybe not, they're kind of making it harder for themselves, maybe you need to let them know, like, hey, I see this. And it's out of a place of love, right? This all comes from a place.
Do it with people that you're close
yeah, with. They're doing it the wrong way. So this is just coming from like people that are around you, right? Yeah. Because it hurts me when I see people I love struggle. And I try to do it in a way where you got to be the example first. You can't go telling them what to do and you not doing it. Yeah. But I think inevitably when they see you kind of just taking care of yourself, they are going to ask those questions. They're going to feel comfortable because you're just being that example. So you do it first, right? Be that leader financially for the people around you, and just have that open door conversation. And it can't start with you. You just have to have that desire to have that conversation.
Well, and then I think, because going back to what you said about, what you guys started doing, I think everyone needs to, we all need to, it's hard, especially if you don't have a partner, like you guys have to be on the same page and then kind of create a goal together, right? And then, but I think it's special when you guys kind of come together, and instead of saying like, you need to, because like, I've seen family, clients, like partnership, or just like, oh, she's a spender, you know, and then, you know, they're rolling their eyes and like they're and vice versa, whatever.
Present.
Yeah. And then, but if you can come up with like a fun goal together, why we're gonna get better with our finances and start saving more because, you know, XYZ, because we're gonna buy a house in the next, like putting a goal together where you actually have a common thing that you're aiming for. And when there's a reason to like why you're doing things, it makes it so much better. And then that will help, you know, some, you know, couple, maybe they're not on the same page, but, you know, they're, instead of like pointing fingers and saying because that's oftentimes what could happen, you know? So I think that's, you know, a big thing right there too. So I just wanted to point out.
No, and I think it's such a great question, and it's always good to reflect on that with like your partner. Well, I think because we talk about maybe more debt and like how to get out of it, like really in this episode, talk about what giving looks like for you. And like, as you kind of grow more financially and you're earning more, like, do you feel that giving and really just the journey of that, you know, what's your approach? And do you believe giving is an important part of financial success?
Oh, yeah. I think it's very important. I think if you're a selfish person, you're not going to bring abundance, right? Like God will want to bless those who want to bless others. And that's why we're here on this earth. Honestly, like I always say, because, you know, we're building a business. It's doing awesome and it's ongoing. And it's, I thank God every day. And I know you do too. Like we're always saying we're blessed, every morning, you know, we're too blessed to be stressed.
Amen.
Amen. And I'm like, I don't need, like, yes, I'm ambitious and we're, you know, we want to continue to grow in our industry and make more and, you know, do more, but I don't need $1 million a year, $2 million, $10 million a year for myself. Like that's ridiculous. Like for me, like, what am I going to do with that? But it's like, giving back to others, right? You can't give what you don't have. So, one of the big goals that we have with our visionary team is we want to be able to create a nonprofit organization at one point and be able to travel around the world to like these other countries that are underserved, that don't have food under their table, like water, access to running water, like literally shoes. Like there's so many people out there that like we're so blessed. Like the fact that we could even be on this podcast right now and have water and all this like glitz and glam, whatever.
This is just top notch.
And it's like, but there's so many people to help out there. And I think that's just part of it. That's what drives me to like continue to build and to give back to others and to be able to, I know you want to retire like your family and same for me. It's like, I want to just give back to my family and that it's like mine as well. We got put on this earth, right? Help one another. And so I think it's a huge part.
I think it just really just like keeping it bigger than you, you know, like when it's bigger than you can fit in it, but also it allows you to understand it's not all about you. It's bigger than you. It's for others. It really does magnify who you are. I've seen some really wealthy people that are just, unfortunately, you know, emotionally immature, or they can't handle certain situations, or they break when there's pressure. And it's really sad to see, because if that was different and they had these different, I guess, like characteristics, that could really magnify in a different way. So I think like giving back, and it really does come back to you in tenfold. Like God will continue to provide, he'll continue to bless you. And I think that's like such an abundance mindset. It's like, I'm not, you know, I know more will come. I'm not worried.
And don't you feel good when you like give back? Don't you feel good when you have like done something, even that day, like you help somebody out, like you feel fulfilled, you know, that feeling. Like I think a lot of people have that, you know, you feel good when you were able to be a service to somebody, you know, and that's what makes life so beautiful. If it's always like you, it's not exciting, you know?
Not at all.
Not at all. But
I think one last thing for that too is just to like, when you do give without expectation of anything back.
Huge.
Just give it and let you do what you want with that information, with that money, with this gift, but I'm okay, you know, and just not having an expectation. If it's freeing, it really does allow you to serve people without like a motive behind it. And like, that's true giving, you know, God has given and we tithe, and it's like, I'm truly just giving. I don't expect anything in return, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's also important if you do have somebody that is helpful, right? That is a giving person. I see, you know, people that are such big givers. Sometimes people take them for granted too. And I think it's just being aware and being grateful. I think, you know, having that abundant mindset, like you said, and having gratitude, you know, it's just really important. So appreciate those around you. And continue to serve others, continue to help, because at the end of the day, I truly believe that, you know, everything is God's, and, you know, He has given us the ability and the tools and access to be able to be, you know, where we're at today, and want to continue to help impact more people that way. So I love it.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Well, there was so much I feel like we're definitely going to talk more about in regards to finances, but we just wanted to share a little bit about what it looked like for us growing up, maybe some struggles that we see throughout the daily service of helping others here. But we do want to hear from you. You know, what are some struggles that you have that you want help in and you just don't know where to go? Like, definitely reach out to us. We want to address those and just be a resource always for you guys. So
oh my gosh.
Until next time.